They tell me, Mr. Park, that you're 82 years of age.
Yes, I turned 82 on September the 12th.
With a ripe old age. And still going strong.
Oh, yes, all scenario.
If you're 82 now, you must have been around at the time of the Tarawera Eruption.
Oh, yes. I was right up there at Bertolini at the time. And I remember quite well all about the eruption in that part of the country, of course.
What were you doing there at the time of the eruption?
Oh, I was working at a sawmill. And we were cutting timber mostly for what is now called Rotorua. Ohinamoto it was called then. And we were just cutting timber in the small mill there. And then the night of the eruption, I was awakened in the middle of the night. One of my mates I thought he was taking my bunk, and he said, "Hey, you're a dead or alive, man." He said, "Can't you hear the racket?" And I woke up and I found he wasn't shaking my bunk, but it was a terrific earthquake on at the time. And I could hear these big reports. It sounded like big guns in the distance. There was also flashings of light. So we wondered what it was. One of the mates there said he considered it was a Russian gunboat somewhere around the coast, because in those days we had scares about the Russians coming into New Zealand. However, after a time we went on a bit of a hill at the back of the camp so that we could see better. And we saw these great flashes of light, and there was continuous earthquakes, and we were no sooner out of one than it was into another. We was watching there, and then there came a tremendous heave. There was a big flash of light in the sky, and it looked like as though the side near the top of the mountain on the eastern side seemed to disappear all at once. And that was the volcano. Well, we weren't afraid. There was nothing happening to us. We were quite all right down in the camp. Went back and was yarning there for some time. And then we heard a crash. Sounded like a house falling down or something. Well, some of us went out and we found that the whole place was enveloped in a very dense fog. We couldn't make this out at all. Yeah, we had to look round to see what happened to this house. It was a stable, really. And this fog was not really a fog. It was just a kind of damp dust falling all over the place, just like a very thick fog. And it was settling on the houses, you see. And this was a big flat-roofed house where the horses were, and of course the weight broke it down. Well, that gave us a warning. We thought it was time to begin looking after our own house where we were living. I was the lightest there, only a youngster. I was about 17 at the time. So they gave me a leg up onto the roof, passed me over a piece of board, and told me to slide this silt down off the roof. Seemed to be about 9 inches thick, or it might have been more. I couldn't tell in the darkness that there was there. So I traveled away here for a while, and I got a good bit of stuff down, and they sent up another man. By and by there was 4, 2 on each side of the building, and we pushed this stuff down with these boards. Somebody suggested not to take a spade up because of the lightning. Well, we didn't know whether it was lightning or what it was, but it looked like sheet lightning to us. Well, we got the roof clear, however. You'll have some idea how much stuff we shoveled down. But when I got off the building, I stepped quite easily off the eaves of the building onto the silt that we'd been shoveling down, you see, plus the stuff that was falling there at the same time. The fellows who were not on the roof, they'd been shoveling it away from the door. We'd been poking it down in front of the door and everywhere. They were shoveling it from the door, and it looked like a rabbit burrow to get down inside the house then. However, things were beginning to look a bit crook, and we sat round in the camp and talked matters over and decided we'd have to get out. Couldn't stop there shoveling this stuff always. And we decided, yes, we'll go when it comes daylight. Which way will we go? There's only two ways. One would be through Ticketerry out to Rotorua. And we were afraid of that. We didn't know what Ticketerry might be up to. And we didn't know what Rotorua might be up to. So we decided the only safest way was to go to Tarawera. And we had to cross the lake, you see. I suppose it was 7 or 8 miles from the mill to a landing called Tahiti. There was a little accommodation house there and a stable where the coach horses were changed at Tahiti. Also some Maori meeting houses and the like. There was a big land court on just at the time, too. However, we were going off when it comes daylight, and we packed up some stuff. Everybody had a rug, a certain amount of food to take with us, and someone suggested take bridles. You might pick up some Maori horses on the road, you see.
You had a bit of trouble with the old mill manager, too, didn't you? He was a German. He thought the end of the war was come or something.
There was an old fellow there, and the boys asked me to go along and see them. I knew the people pretty well. And there was a couple of women there and the old man, and I said we wanted them to come along to our camp so we could protect them from having the house fall down on top of them, you see. But the old man, he seemed to have gone off his head, and he said, it's no use. No use, he said, it's the same way you're going to. And we said, well, we're going to make for Tarawera. Well, he said, it'll be the same in Tarawera, it'll be the same all over the world. He said, we may just as well stop here and die. And we had a job to get the old chap to come along to our camp. However, we got them along, and we fully determined to leave at daylight. Well, it come at 8 o'clock in the morning, and no sign of any daylight. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. By Jove, it looked as though we weren't going to get any daylight. We decided to start off in the darkness. My mate and I went down to the wharf to see about getting a boat. All the small boats were sunk. They were filled up with silt. But there was a big lump of a barge there. It had a mast and lee boards on it for sailing, you know. It also had some long sweeps, oars that they could pull with. That was tied up alongside the wharf. There was timber on the wharf, overhanging the wharf, and that protected this big dugout from having the silt fill it up, you see. So, of course, a good bit of silt was in it, but anyway, we dug that out and cleaned it out, and all hands got in it. There were 16 of us altogether, and women and children. We couldn't see anything of the surroundings, of course. We couldn't see any hills. We couldn't see any distance at all. And all they could do was point a nose out in the direction of Tahiti. That's where we wanted to go to. And we set out with 4 oars, rowing. The earthquakes were still continuing, and the silt was still falling. Well, we rowed for a long time, and we thought, well, if we've come straight, we must be close to Tahiti by now.
Did the silt falling tend to fill the boat up at all?
Yes.
Thick enough for that?
Yes, there was quite a lot fell in the boat, and those who weren't rowing were scooping it out, throwing it overboard. Well, we stopped rowing. We thought if we have come straight towards Tahiti, we must be getting somewhere near.
I suppose the falls would be an anxiety for you too. That's the outlet for the Tarawera River.
Yes, it was. We were very frightened of going over the falls. And we were afraid to go on. As a matter of fact, we had the wind up. And we stopped rowing, and everybody was making suggestions, and none of them any good. We didn't know what to do. And they seemed to talk themselves dry after a while, and we were all very silent. And I thought I could hear voices in the distance. I told somebody alongside, and I said, I think I can hear voices. And they all started listening intently. Yes, there's voices all right. Well, if there's voices there, that must be people there. We'll make for that. So we headed from where we heard the sound. It sounded very distant, these voices. And we made for that. Followed the sound and run right on the shore, right at Tahiti, where we wanted to land.
Well, I suppose when you got landed at more or less to safety, you thought about organizing a search party to go back and see if it could help in any way?
Oh, yes. There was a search party already gone out to look for us. And they had missed the way and got lost, but they turned up that next day after the eruption. They turned up all right, and there was light enough to see, travel across the lake, and we got in the old boat again and rowed back to the mill. The old shed of the mill was pretty dilapidated then, and a good part of it hanging down. Our hut was all right, and the boss's dwelling was all right.
I suppose food would be
Pardon?
Food would be an item then.
Well, we had plenty of food there. But there was a Maori village just along the beach, a few hundred yards from the mill. We went along there to see how they were getting on. All the warriors were flat down on the ground. We didn't see anybody about, and Maori canoes were all gone, and so we took it for granted that they cleared out in their canoes and that they were all right.
Yeah.
Then we knew there was another village just over the spur at the neck of our camp, the spur that we'd got on to watch the affair. So we went over there, my mate and I, to see how the Maoris had fared. They were gone too. The warriors all flat, except one place where there was a steep bank and they had several poles leaning up against the bank, and some rapu thatch on top and a few old sacks. We went and looked in there, and there was an old Maori woman in there, very, very ancient woman. She looked more like a poor old animal than a human. She was doubled up. I think she was blind, and we couldn't understand anything she said. So my mate and I went back to the mill and to the old camp, and we got 2 or 3 blankets, old blankets, and I got a 50-pound bag of potatoes, and he got some more things in another 50-pound bag, and we took them over to the old woman and gave them to her. We also gathered a bit of firewood and put it there for her, and come away. We couldn't do anything with her. But later on, when we saw some Maoris, we told them about the old woman, and they said they'd go and collect her, so we didn't hear anything more about that.
Yes, it must have been pretty difficult trying to walk in that soft, well, what was it, dust? It must form more or less like snow in the finish.
It was like very thin water, and heavy enough to walk in. I started out the day after I got back to the camp. I had a horse up on the run, and I started out to find this horse. Started out at daylight in the morning, with the bridle with me and some tucker. Well, I couldn't find him. I think somebody must have jumped on him and rode away when the eruption was on. There's plenty of horses round about, Maori horses. I tramped round all day, coming on near nightfall. I wanted to get back home, but there was no sign of anything that would guide me what direction to go in. The bush was all just a matter of bare poles sticking up. The branches were broken off and had a lot of them hanging. So anyway, my sense of direction was all right. I went the right way. There was no track. But this silt was on my pants pretty high and very heavy. I wasn't quite sure whether I was on the right road or not till I come to the brow of the hill. And there was growing a big pino tree. It was growing out from the bank, and I recognized this when I come to it. Although it had the branches broken off, it was leaning at such an angle that I could get in underneath it. And it was like a little cave underneath there. I crawled in there and rested for a few minutes, and I saw the fern that was growing there, 5 or 6 foot long. And I was desperately hungry by this time because I'd started out at daylight and was well on toward the middle of the night for then. So I dragged some of this fern out of the ground and rubbed the grit off it and started chewing it. I chewed it from the butt right up to the branches. Sucked the juice out of it, and it was good, I tell you.
And it appeased the hunger?
Well, it was pretty good. Well, I went down that hill, and when I got to the bottom, there was a mare there, one of the tram horses. It appears the men had brought out some horses that day from the mill, but the poor old mare couldn't get up the hill. It was pretty steep. She was weak for want of tucker. And there was the mare standing there with her nose almost touching the ground. I put my bridle on and tried to scramble up on her. She was pretty high mare. Anyway, she staggered and fell over on the ground. I had to jump to get her up on her feet. I was clean fagged myself, but I got her on her feet at last, and I led her to a hummock. Might have been an old stump that was covered over with the silt. Got her alongside that and climbed very carefully onto her back. Turned her for home. She was very slow, but she got me home to the camp.
Used to be grateful for that after a day like that.
And it was just breaking day when I got home. There was a light in the camp, and I pushed the door open, and here were the fellows all prepared to go out and search for me.
That was pleased to see you as they were to see you were to see them.
Yeah.
Then I suppose you returned to where the others were to get out of it altogether.
Well, we left from there. We seemed to split up then. My mate and I decided to walk through to Hinamutu. And we made up a swag of our most important belongings, and not too heavy, and started out. We walked to Hinamutu. I don't know how many miles. It might be 20 miles or something like that. We had to go through Piccadilly to get there. We were very surprised when we got to Hinamutu that there was no silt there at all. They hadn't got any of it. So stayed that night at the hotel, and was to go on by bus next morning. Horse coach it was. So we turned out the next morning after breakfast, and the customer said, "Have you booked your seats?" No, he didn't know anything about booking seats. Well, he said, "You got to book your seats at the office. In any case," he said, "there's only one seat there." So my mate, and beat some of the fellow, he said, "Well, you get up on the seat, Jim," he said, "and I'll walk." Well, having a life, I said, "We're not going to part like this, and I'll walk with you." I said, "We'll put our luggage on the bus, and we'll walk together out to Lichfield." It was about 36 or 37 miles. So all the bus driver went and a bit hostile. And he said, you're not going to put your luggage on unless you're going to ride. So I offered to pay for the seat, and not offer for it, but put my luggage on the bus. And then he wouldn't have it. He went hostile, and so we told him to go somewhere. And we arranged with the porter there at the hotel to forward our goods later on. We put labels on them. We started off to walk to Leach. Foolishly, we started off without arranging about any food on the way. We didn't know what the road was like, and naturally we expected to buy something. But there were no houses. Nearly all the first part of the journey was uphill out of Rotorua. And when we got a good distance, probably halfway to Leachfield, we come across the stable there, where they changed horses for the buses. They saw the stableman and asked him if there was any chance of getting a feed, and he said, yes, I'll sing out for the missus. So he did, and we were invited in. We soon had a pot of tea for us, homemade bread, and a tin of bully beef, and we did go for that, I can assure you. We then wanted to pay her for this, and the good woman wouldn't take anything, so we put a few bob in the hands of the two children they had there, and away we went. We hadn't been going very long after that, and we saw some horses on the side of the road where the bush had been cleared and black stumps and trees lying around. My mate was a good horseman. I knew very little about horses. He said, we get a horse and ride part of the way anyway. So we went in and we caught one quite easy. He said, well, this is a nice quiet one, you better have this one. So I tied 4 pocket handkerchiefs together by the corners and put it around the horse's neck. And he caught another one there and seemed pretty vicious and tried to kick him. Oh, I said, this one will do me all right. You're going to take the quiet one out on the road. And I'll follow, so he did. And got out on the road, and I put my overcoat on the horse I had and jumped up, and away went the horse. I had no way of stopping him. He could have run off among the stumps, and I couldn't do anything with him. I grabbed hold of the horse's mane and hung on for my life. My overcoat slipped out from under me. So he must have galloped a couple of miles. He was slowing down at last, puffed, and there was a Maori on the road there, and he come out and stopped the horse, and I was jolly glad he did stop it, too. Anyway, he accused me of stealing his horse.
Of course you weren't, were you?
Well, I was stealing a ride on it anyway. And the Maori went hostile, and I was looking anxiously for my mate. His horse wouldn't come too well, and it was quite a while before he caught up to us. And by that time, the Maori had worked himself up into a fever heat. So I explained to my mate what was the trouble, and we offered the Maori 10 bob each. Let us ride the 2 ponies on to Litchfield. Now he wanted £5 and not to ride them. £5 because we stole them. So anyway, one bird brought on another, then they got the halt, my mate and the Maori, and my mate dashed them out over the side of the road, and he said, come on, we've had enough of this, and we didn't pay him anything. We walked on into Litchfield.
While you were at Litchfield, you met the remnants of the Hazard Party.
There were some relations of the head of the Hazard Party staying there the same night.
Had they been in the eruption?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I think so. But I don't know. You see, everything, we were pretty strangers there. We didn't mix with the people much. After walking 36 miles, I was glad to get into bed. But I heard people saying those were the Hazard people.
I understand that the first word of your middle was posted in Auckland that all were killed.
Oh, yes, my people in Auckland, the first word they got through, there were bulletins put out on the big board at the Herald office. and a message come through to say that the sawmill was destroyed and all hands lost. That's the only word that my people got through. But the day after the eruption, this constable, John Kavanagh, he said he was going to go around to Hinamutu and he would take telegrams from any of us to our people. So he did, and my people didn't get my telegram for some days after, 3 or 4 days after. Poor fellow who was on the post office and telegraph us there, he stuck to his job night and day. Was telegrams going all the time. People. The mine got down eventually, and poor old Dad and Mum, they were down the street and they saw put up on the board at the Herald office to A.J. Park of Newton Road. I've reached Tarawera and I'm safe. Jim. Well, the old daddy said, well, what the hell is wrong? He said, we've got no telegram like that. Come on home, Mum. So they went home. And they found when they got home, the telegram was there. And boy had pushed it under the door. But the Herald people were getting all the telegrams and putting them up on the board.
Yeah. Oh, it must have been a very anxious time for all the relatives.
Oh, it was very.
Yes, so, well, you had a wonderful experience, Mr. Parks, and I take it that you would be more or less about the only survivor now of that period went through that eruption.
Oh, I don't know. Of course, most of the men there were fairly old, married men and that. But there was 1 or 2 young fellows, same age as myself, one of them. And his name was Jim too. We were both Jims.
You'd be delighted to hear, I guess, from anybody that was there. You would be delighted to hear, I guess, of anybody that was there.
Oh, yes.
Huh? You'd have a wonderful old sin of the old times.
But they weren't old friends. I'd only been there a few months, you see. It wasn't as though I'd known them for a long time.
No.
But I think that's about all I know about the thing.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Parks.